Welcome back. I'm very excited. People put in questions in advance. We have a very interesting show topic for you guys, and then we're going to discuss all sorts of things. I might even take some Scott Fishbowl questions. In case you're new, I don't know how that's possible, but there are apparently new people who find this through the shorts feed. Tyler, I would be surprised if you didn't know me based on what the channel's called, but I do fantasy content on Twitter and for DLF and a couple of other places. And, I have a whole set of co-hosts. They're all here. And we do this show every Tuesday, 7:30 p.m. Eastern. Make sure to like and subscribe. If you're not liking and you're not subscribing, then that's why the channel isn't doing so well. So make sure to like and subscribe if you're here. Leave a comment. If you're watching it now, live, make a comment in the live chat. I do this show. I do a live show. I can tell you it's not efficient. Not good for me. I don't really enjoy doing live much these days. It's tough. So if I do it for the questions in the chat. So I hope to see those because that's how I can help you live. And I want to try to move through them a little faster than I've done in the past and address all of them, a little bit more. So we're going to do that. And then if you're watching this after, I really appreciate that. 75% of the views are after. So if you're watching it after, make sure to leave a comment under the video, and I will answer all of those questions, even if it's complicated. I did ask for questions in the show in advance. Some people delivered. I think it's mostly my patrons, but I see a couple of others in there. So let's just jump straight into questions. No more introductions. And then we'll weave in the news. We have some other things in the background. We'll weave that in kind of as it goes. Maybe as it comes up from a question in the chat, we'll weave it in. So I don't know if anyone put Damien Pierce on the show sheet. I don't think so. But the first question from Tiago comes in about Damien Pierce. It's an interesting one. I think he could have been a subject of this risk video for sure. I feel like analysts are all over the place on Damien Pierce. What would you be willing to pay for him? Dynasty, a first, a second. What would that be? So for me, I think that I'm somewhere in the middle on Damien Pierce. I have heard some interesting takes on some podcasts, but let's bring in the other people on the show. It's not a monologue show as much as if I could talk for 3 hours straight and not get tired, it would be, but it's not. So what do we have to say about Damien Pierce? Does anyone have a strong opinion? I'd like to hear a strong opinion. If that's a no, we'll just take any opinion.
I'll hop in with an opinion.
An opinion. All right. What's an opinion?
So I think for me, I look at the upside of some of the younger running backs. I'm probably looking at like a second for Damien Pierce and probably a higher one just because I feel like the position is still so difficult to find that workhorse. And they kind of used him as that in those 13 starts with Houston last year. If you took what he did in those 13 starts and you from a rushing yard perspective, looked at that over a full season, it's over 1,225 yards. So, that's pretty tough to find these days, a guy that's going to be pretty consistent. They did bring in some competition with Singletary there, but, I feel like I'm like lukewarm like you. I'm not super high on him like some people are. Some people think he's like, a fringe top 10 dynasty running back. I'm not there. I'm kind of in the middle of the road on Pierce.
It's so hard to pick a side because one, you have the draft capital from last season just in there somewhere, and they didn't replace him, but he did wear out a little bit at the end of the stretch. So in the middle, it feels like I know we hate when we say that, but like it feels I feel exactly how Ryan does, just lukewarm. Like I'll draft him, I'll have him on my team, but like early second, sure.
I'm in between. I'm often asking myself the question of, would I rather have Damien Pierce or someone like Zach Charbonnet, who ended up being right around that 1-2 turn in the rookie drafts. And now with rookie drafts over, for the most part, I'm not going to give a 24 first for him.
Well, I don't think anyone would.
Yeah, but I'm also not going to give 2 seconds for him, which I think random 24 second isn't enough for me to to give up Damien Pierce.
Where would you rank him in the stack of the rookies this year for running backs? Because like I think there's an argument that he could be third out of this group, like after Robinson and Gibbs.
Oh, well, I mean, I think he is at this point.
So
Yeah.
if it's a late
Von
first,
A-Chain
that starts
is-
to get you of like you going A-Chain, you going Charbonnet. Maybe
I'll go with
he is
Pierce.
worth the late first.
I'll go with Pierce because he's actually been successful so far. And, Charbonnet and A-Chain have their issues. It's not like, someone who got a first-round pick or was an elite prospect. I mean, those are not elite prospects. They're good, but good prospects don't always work out. So I'd rather take what I've seen at this point. A-Chain, I will say, and we will talk about that. That is on my show sheet. Miami Dolphins offered Dalvin Cook a contract. Take this down for a sec, because we'll jump to that. They offered Dalvin Cook a contract, and I do think that will be done. I do think so. I think that'll be done. I think they will sign Dalvin Cook. When they do, I think Devon A-Chain will be a huge buy, because Dalvin Cook is on the back end of his career. Devon A-Chain was always going to take a little bit of time to integrate into the NFL. And I think people are going to drop his dynasty value way more than they should. He's actually already a buy, but I don't see the reason to do it now because I think Dalvin Cook is going to sign there. So his price is going to go down even more. And then he'll be a huge buy for me. So that's just something interesting to kind of keep on the radar.
So,
What's up?
But with the Dalvin Cook signing, when it happens, the Miami Dolphins will have signed 3 free agent running backs this offseason and drafted Devon A-Chain.
Yeah. That is strange.
Sounds like a team that really knows where they're going with their backfield.
I think Raheem Mostert and Jeff Wilson can both be cut with like very little cap impact. So I think that's also a part of it. So I think they're looking at it as they could still improve at the position while it's getting devalued elsewhere in the league and capitalize on bringing in Dalvin Cook and cutting some of the weaker guys and just giving themselves that depth for that 17-game season.
Yeah, I mean, it's always tough when you have so many players, but I don't know. I think you make your team better when you can't.
Oh, absolutely. And Cook makes that team better, but I'm nervous as a fantasy manager of too many cooks in the kitchen.
There you go.
All right. When it comes to trades in Superflex Dynasty startups, what would you say a third-round startup pick is worth? If Chase falls to number 8, do I take him over Trevor Lawrence? Well, those are two totally separate questions. If Chase, I do have Chase at 7 and Lawrence at 8 in my startup rankings for Superflex. I think they're pretty similar. So I would take Chase ahead. That I think is less interesting than the first question. What is a third-round startup pick worth? I mean, probably about 2 future firsts. The players I have in that range are Jonathan Taylor, Jahmyr Gibbs. Maybe I'd pay 2 firsts for those. Probably not. So maybe not even then. I mean, T. Higgins, Drake London, Devonta Smith. There's not that many quarterbacks in that third round. The only one I have in there is Tua. It's the only quarterback that I have is worth a third-round startup pick. Everyone else is either higher or lower. I don't think I would pay 2 firsts for Tua. So, yeah, I guess it's worth a little bit less then.
Yeah, I think Taylor's the guy that you mentioned there that's like the high end of that. And then as you went through the names, as it teetered off into that third round, I feel like you started to see the talent drop off. So I'm with you there.
So what quarterbacks are we taking over? Like, so if we're taking Jamar Chase over Trevor Lawrence, like what quarterbacks are we taking then above Jamar Chase?
Mahomes, Allen, Hurts, Burrow, and Herbert.
Yeah, I'll do it.
It's a fair list.
Yeah.
Football is heating up. I can feel it. Ready for the nonstop action come July. Oh, I hope so. I really hope so. But, we'll see. We'll have to see.
When does Hard Knocks go live? That's kind of like the first touch. Is that early August?
Do they even have?
I've never watched it.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
I don't even think they have a team yet, to be quite honest with you.
Jets.
Oh, it is the Jets?
It's the Jets. Yep. Aaron Rodgers and the Jets.
That'll be interesting. Better post-type sleeper in the double digits rounds of a startup, John Mechie or Trey McBride? Well, I did just write about Trey McBride. It'll come out on the DLF site at some point soon. John Mechie, I do think he's the most talented wide receiver on the Texans. They're very similar to me. I would lean toward Trey McBride, but they're in the same round of value for me, actually.
Mechie was one of those guys, when I watched this film in college, he just always seemed to stand out for me. McBride's a little bit more on the pedestrian side for me when it comes to like if you look at the influx of rookies that just came in, I think I probably prefer 3, maybe even 4 over McBride. So I don't know. I'm not feeling super strongly one way or the other, but I'd probably lean Mechie. But I
will say with Trey McBride, it's important to remember that not many tight ends have 90 receptions or 1,121 yards in college at all, let alone in one season. So I would say he is a very strong prospect, but his rookie year was bad. It was bad. Even by, the standards for a rookie tight end, it wasn't good. So you got to keep that in mind. And the Cardinals are going to be a dumpster fire, but we will be covered in my DLF article. It's coming out on the 30th, so Friday.
A dumpster fire with Caleb Williams next year, though.
Well, wouldn't that be nice?
It's happening.
What is the risk level for Chris Godwin? His QB situation is so bad. I agree with that. He might be decent in Dynasty, but only as a 1-year deal. Is that even true? Chris Godwin's contracts expire after this year? I wasn't aware of that.
On it.
Yeah. Check that out for me. I forgot about that, if that's the case. Well, could be a monster next year or this year if he got dealt. Well, I like Chris Godwin. I am a little concerned for this year. And I do worry he's already 27. If it's not good this year, how much dynasty value is? Yeah, no, it is. He has a 2024 year, and it's almost all guaranteed. So it's not true.
Dang, I was excited.
Yeah. So it's not true. So I would say that it's fine. I'm a little worried, though, that his high-end value is in the past. Yeah. I'm not in at his current price, which is wide receiver 21. Seems too high.
For Dynasties, 21?
Yeah, it's too high.
Yeah, it's a little too high.
I'll play devil's advocate here because I'm team Chris Godwin. I'm saying put the green flag out and go with him. Baker Mayfield has managed to support slot wide receivers every year of his career. He kept Jarvis Landry as a wide receiver 1 when he was in Cleveland. I fully believe that Baker Mayfield can continue to support with a low average depth of target to Chris Godwin, which he saw his lowest of his career last year. Will the PPR value of the number of targets he's going to get will provide plenty of fantasy points for us. So I'm fully riding with Chris Godwin where I've got him. And if people are dropping him down towards wide receiver 25, wide receiver 30, I'll happily go and buy him at that price. I would much rather have him over Michael Pittman, over Brandon Ayuk, even though Brandon Ayuk is one of my consistent guys that I really like this year.
Dropping the steamy takes.
I want Chris Godwin there. Yeah.
Well, I don't agree. But Michael Pittman is continuing to move down my rankings. So But he is a little bit younger, which helps. Brandon Ayuk is moving up my rankings.
Ayuk's
I
also
like
moving
Brandon
up my
Ayuk a
rankings,
lot.
but
He is he's crushing it apparently at camp. He's the
My-
biggest value in redraft ADP among wide receivers for me, period. He's at like 32. I have him at 23.
Ayuk?
32. Well,
Ayuk had value with last year. We heard reports constantly through training camp that he had a good rapport with Trey Lance. When Brock Purdy came in, he had a good rapport with Brock Purdy. He's connecting with all of those quarterbacks. So no matter who the quarterback is, I feel like he's consistent with that person. And I'm expecting to see good things out of Ayuk this year.
Oh, I think Ayuk is their wide receiver one. Debo is still in that role. That's kind of interesting.
Debo's a playmaker on that team.
I like Ayuk a lot. But the risk level for Chris Godwin is high to me. The problem is that if you're 27 years old and you just have a disastrous season, your value is going to go away. I mean, look at Cortland Sutton. What's he worth now? Same age going in, bad season. He's not worth anything, really.
yeah, but Chris Godwin's on a whole nother talent level than Cortland Sutton. So
That's true. But Dynasty's fickle.
I know.
It's fickle. If you are older and you don't, when you get older, you have to deliver every year. You don't get to not deliver. So now he's at that age where 27, I think, is where that kind of starts. You can't talk about, well, next year. You have to deliver now. So I just tend to fade people. Once they get to 27, if I don't like the situation they're in right now, at wide receiver, once we hit 27, that's when I start looking at what are we doing now? What is the situation now? And then depending on that, but there aren't that many wide receivers over 27 that I like at their price. There's a couple that I don't hate, but most of them I don't like. Deontay Johnson's like the only one that's like somewhat reasonable, and he's a lot cheaper than Chris Godwin. And I'm not sure that the difference is that large. I'd much rather take Deontay Johnson. Oh, hi, Caleb.
Whoa.
Who's the wide receiver to own in Kansas City? Well, none of them. Travis Kelce. And I don't know. I don't have a Kansas City wide receiver ranked in my top 40 for redraft. And for Dynasty, I don't know if I do either.
I don't for Dynasty.
I don't either. So I think for this year, it's Kadarius Toney.
Yeah.
Long
if
term,
you're gonna-
maybe it's Rashee Rice.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, if you're gonna throw that dart, I'm going with Rice with the upside. I feel like at least he's had college production. He's got the big frame. Does he step
In
into
redraft,
Kelsey's
though,
role?
In redraft, I'd rather take Kadarius Toney, and here's why. It's a good. We're gonna move a little bit more into redraft strategy. Here's why. Rashee Rice, I don't think you're gonna know week one. Is Rashee Rice going to be relevant? I don't think he's going to get a high snap share week one. I think you're gonna have to wait. In redraft, you can't afford it. You can't afford to wait on a wide receiver like that. Kadarius Toney will be very obvious. Either the role's there, the role that we want, the 80 to 90% snap share, heavily manufactured plays, that's what he needs. If Kadarius Toney doesn't have manufactured plays, he's not worth anything. He has to have those. You'll know week one. He either has that role or he doesn't. If he doesn't, you can cut him. Rashee Rice, though, is too much of a delay. You're not going to know week one what he is. So that's why in redraft, I would take Kadarius Toney because you could have a gold mine. There is a universe in which Kadarius Toney has 8 targets, is manufactured plays, is the leading receiver in snaps. There's also a universe where he's not playing much. Then you cut him, you move on. That's why in redraft, it's easily Kadarius Toney for me. In Dynasty, I just think that, they spent a significant price on Rashee Rice, and I think that he profiles with more upside than Kadarius Toney long term. So.
Quick question on Rice. Could you see him, and I touched on this at the end of what I was saying there, but if Kelsey ages out, could Rice, I know he's not going to play tight end. I don't mean he's going to play tight end, but could he play that big body target that Mahomes?
I'm not thinking about it that way. I
Yeah.
don't think so. I'm not really concerned with that. What I'm concerned with is, targets and, the role in the offense. That's not going to be replaced in that way. Rashee Rice is someone who could come in and be, I don't know, an outside. And what is he? He's not that big, but considering what teams are doing, he's a reasonable size for an outside receiver. 6'1", little over 200 pounds. Reasonable size to play outside now. You have Devonta Smith playing outside, who's much smaller.
You know what we need to manifest when Travis Kelce ages out? If they trade for Kyle Pitts.
I will say, I do like Noah Gray. I've always liked Noah Gray. The backup tight end there is kind of a flyer.
Yeah.
He's been in the system for a couple of years. Travis Kelce kind of came out of nowhere. A lot of people forget that. He wasn't first round pick. He didn't do anything for the first couple of years of his career. So he's someone I like stashing. But I think that Kansas City's wide receiver 1, their eventual 1, is not on the team. I think that's you can't replace Kelce. So I think how they'll replace Kelce is by getting a wide receiver 1. There's just
No, you could replace him. He's in Atlanta right now. Chill.
no. 5 hosts, yes. There was a possibility at some point today we were going to have 7 hosts. But then it didn't happen. That's okay. Keep on the good work. Never get discouraged. Plenty of good work being done. Thank you. I appreciate that.
That's what my wife said.
You want me to? We could talk about that. I think that'll get the show canceled. That's okay. Interesting. It's not really my thing. I'm not gonna lie. Sharps over Pierce. I have Pierce higher.
Same.
But that's because I value a lot what a running back's going to do straight off the bat. It's tough. Walker's not going away.
And I feel like if they were going to move on from Pierce, Singletary wouldn't have been the only guy they brought in, right? There's not a lot of,
with that.
What's it, Mike Boone after that? Like, there's nothing there.
Daria Gumbawale.
Yeah.
Maybe they'll get a running back from Miami or something.
Maybe. I do wonder, what is Miami going to do if they sign Cook? I mean, they do have guaranteed money committed to Wilson and Mostert. So
Does Mostert go back to returning kicks, or does it stay with A-Chain?
yeah, it's very strange. It's very, very strange. I don't know what really the plan is there, to be honest.
Wilson's only 2.6 dead cat. So I feel
Yeah,
like,
but they're both underwater.
yeah,
As in the dead cap is higher than the cap hit.
right.
So it would be very strange if they signed Cook, what they would do. But I guess, you build your team first and you worry about that later. Inbox offer in 12-team Superflex start 10 half point. Send Kenneth Walker, Devonta Smith, and a 24 mid to late 2. Receive Kyler, Tony, 25 first. Don't have a QB, but have good depth at wide receiver already. Well.
Wow.
Take,
I have a pretty
Kyler, I
strong
guess.
opinion on this. Really?
I'll take Kyler.
Kyler.
Okay, Tyler.
Yeah.
It does come with the 25 first. I do like Kenneth Walker still, though, and I think Devonta might be one of the better pieces in this deal. So it is super flex 12 team, though, so those quarterbacks are tough to come by. So if you could get Kyler with the first, I think I'm kind of leaning that way as I'm talking it out loud.
Look alive. I feel alive.
Look alive.
What's Kyle Pitts' value right now, taking out what he could be or what he couldn't be? What kind of question is that?
I guess
that's how value is. It's always what he could be or
what
couldn't be.
is he going to do this year?
That's the definition of value.
Is that the question? What is he going to do this year? Like,
I don't care. I have him still as Dynasty tight end 1.
Same.
For redraft, I have him tight end 4.
I think what I like about Pitts is what we talked about with Drake London last week, where it was like how that target trend, as soon as Desmond Ridder took over for Marcus Mariota, went off. And I kind of see Pitts eating into that quite a bit. So I feel like those opportunities are going to be there. And if you just go back and watch the beginning of the season, how many missed opportunities did Marcus Mariota have when throwing a Kyle Pitts deep? It was like he was
So
open
many. There's
so
a whole
many
highlight
times.
reel.
It was, yeah. If you haven't watched that, go watch it. It's really telling to be like, oh my God, Kyle Pitts was so underutilized.
It's so bad.
It was
It's
just
so bad.
That Falcons offense has the potential to be godly in terms of mismatches if Desmond Ridder is at least semi-competent under center. If he just gets the ball out and gets the ball in places.
I have some bad news.
He doesn't have to make good throws. He has to make okay throws.
is it Taylor Heineke?
And that offense can be good.
Tell me it's
Heineke.
Taylor Heineke hour. No bad news. Got it. I was waiting.
Advice on moves.
move
Sign
him
him
for
for
whatever
Monte
you
now.
can get.
Here's my advice. My advice is to sign up for the Patreon. Otherwise, the show won't exist anymore. And then you won't be able to ask. That's my advice.
That's how you plug. I like it.
Yeah. That's my advice on, building a team. I will say I have noticed this offseason, I think maybe 1 or 2 people have signed up asking me to help with a startup. That is the best way for me to help you. It's a huge advantage. Asking me to help after you've already drafted a bad team. There's only so much I can help, but there's only so much I can do. I've noticed there haven't been nearly as many people asking for that. I think a lot of startups people joined a lot of COVID leagues. They have too many leagues. A lot of people aren't doing as many new startups. I think that's why. But yeah, almost every new patron has been wanting help with existing leagues. I don't think I've had one, like I said, 1 or 2. But that is the best way. So if you're ever doing a startup, I will help you. And then you can have a good team to start with, not have to make one later. But yeah, that's my general advice for that kind of thing. I traded Ridley for Godwin and Kamara. More of a Kirk guy. Well,
I just don't have to.
I don't hate that idea. I would take Godwin and Kamara. I'd rather have Godwin over Ridley. Godwin's younger. He's been more good more recently. And also it comes with Kamara, who you can trade away.
I know we keep saying it every week, but I don't understand why Kamara is I know it's the looming suspension, but like seems to still be a value worth the risk in redraft. I just feel like he's outside. What was he, 31st in redraft? We were saying last week.
Something like that. It was way too low.
Right, I need you to do more best ball drafts. Don't amp his ADT up yet. I need to get some lower
I mean, realistically, you have to be concerned with adding Jamal Williams there and adding in Kendra Miller. Like you don't draft Kendra Miller, you don't bring in Jamal Williams in free agency to give Kamara 300 touches again. 300 touch Kamara is gone.
Well, sure. That's why
I think even
16 instead of like.
Even if he
6.
plays 17 games, I don't know if he gets over 180 touches.
Even with that few, he'd still wouldn't be RB31. His redraft price.
That's also assuming. That's assuming he plays. That's assuming that there's no injuries to anyone at all.
Well,
sure. If he plays 17 games, yes, he should return ADP value. Anyone in that range would.
Yeah, it's is an easy trade for me. That
trade's easy.
Not Ayuk. Why not? Why not? I don't understand the case really. I mean, he's just turning 25. The advanced metrics say that he's good.
I think this is when Patrick was running off the people who he'd take Chris Godwin. Wait, I can't word. I'm broken today. It's Tuesday. It's the people.
Hey,
who compared
every
to Chris
single
Godwin.
show is a Tuesday. Are you saying that you're broken on every show?
For sure.
Sure. No, today's one of them Tuesdays.
That's it. Yeah, if you look deeper in the comments, he says love Ayuk, so he's not saying not Ayuk in a
Oh.
bad
Oh.
way. He's saying not Godwin over Ayuk. You were right, Ryan. Good call.
I see. Okay. Currently being offered Anthony Richardson for Bijan. Well, if you want to add more, then don't do it.
Yeah, what the
Bijan is
heck?
worth more.
Yeah,
What is-
Bijan's
Very
what is-
easy.
What is
Make
bro
like all my
scheming?
ex-girlfriends and ghost them.
Oh, that would be interesting.
Okay. Okay. All right.
Patrick, I feel like you're on a mission to get the show canceled today.
How is talking about my favorite movie, Ghostbusters, going to get the show canceled?
Never seen it.
Me neither.
No.
I've also
comment.
never heard of diesel fuel and don't know how to read. So
Well, yeah, reading's hard.
yeah, it's funny. I've written so many articles and I don't feel like I know how to read. I don't enjoy reading. Just made this trade. Gave Amon-Ra and Akers for CMC in 24 third. Ooh. I don't like it. I don't like it. In Dynasty, I think you're going to regret that in the near future, personally. I just don't care for it.
He already had solid running backs with Saquon and Gibbs, so he didn't really even need CMC. I would have kept Amon-Ra.
I do like for this year, I think you're going to be liking that trade. And then I think after that, it's going to go a little bit downhill. What you could do is use CMC this year, hope he has a monster season, try to unload him next year, bring in some of those younger assets that you gave up with Amon-Ra. But
I mean,
Congratulations.
you've got a great
Mr.
team
Champion.
around you. Just write out CMC there. Go win it.
Well, he has CMC now, it sounds like.
Okay.
After
So
the
even then,
trade.
So
yeah,
even
he
then,
acquired CMC.
Okay.
That's his
Yeah.
roster
I'm okay with
post
that.
trade.
That's his roster post-trade.
I'm okay with that then.
I just traded Hopkins and Ferguson for Tony and 24 third. I mean, meh.
I'll be honest. I prefer the Hopkins side.
I think the better strategy would have been to wait for Hopkins to sign, which he will, and then trade him.
In Dynasty, anytime there's any uncertainty around a player, you just see the value plummet. And I'll give you a good example. We just had in my college friend league, we just had a rookie draft last night, and someone dangled Tyreek Hill. And the interest, even though he's probably not going to get suspended next year, was just, he was getting pennies on the dollar for him. So like Hopkins, Dalvin Cook, Alvin Kamara, anytime there's that question mark in Dynasty, people tend to,
That's
pull
why you
off
want to
on the
wait till he
value.
signs.
100%.
Whatever it is, it's better than the uncertainty. Draft capital. That's what DP standard for. I love
All
that.
of us, not one of us thought it too. That's a sad thing. That's pretty
yeah,
bad.
it's true. I didn't think of it. I'm not gonna lie. On the side of the Kansas City wide receivers, I'm in a dynasty league and hedged my bets. I drafted Rice this year to pair with my Tony and Sky Moore. Well, my bet is that one of them is good. My fear is that all are good, but none great. I don't have any of them ranked that high because I'm not sure that this whole theory that, well, there aren't a lot of wide receivers, so one has to emerge has been debunked on time after time after time after time. If there's someone that's elite, they'll emerge. If they're not, then it doesn't happen. Bad players don't become great.
I mean, and
We'll have to
Juju's
see.
not terrible, and he did really nothing in KC, right? So is there anyone on that?
He was fine until he got hurt.
Yeah.
Until he got hurt, he was fine. He wasn't a league winner, but he was
Right.
He was fine. Put it this way, if any of these wide receivers paced what Juju was pacing before he got hurt, we'd be like ecstatic.
Right.
So that's kind of my take on that. I would not have wanted them all. To be honest, though, none of them are bad value. I have Rice and Tony ranked higher than their ADP, and also Sky Moore higher than his ADP. So
there you go, Justin.
I guess it's possible that I could have drafted a team that way.
Tyler likes it.
So this is the link to the Patreon. I gotta tell you, seriously, like I think I'm decent on here. I try my best, but YouTube is not profitable. It's not. And I am not kidding when I say that if I'm not finding that the YouTube shows are bringing in people for the Patreon, there will be no YouTube shows. I am not kidding. I will move the stuff to Twitter Spaces where I have 37,000 followers and can get as much engagement as I want and, promo as much as I want without being hurt by the algorithm. So, I need people to sign up. I hate that it's come to this, but I need people to sign up. And it would mean a lot to me because I love doing this. I love doing this, but it's just, I'm dumping money down the drain on YouTube and I'm not getting anything back. I pay for the StreamYard out of my own pocket. I pay for Canva to do the thumbnails out of my own pocket. And there's no revenue on YouTube. None. So how much longer can I mean, it costs hundreds and hundreds of dollars. So I'm just saying, at some point, I'm going to decide that I can't afford it anymore. So that's that. But I really appreciate everyone who signs up. I think I'm really helpful. I mean, there's a lot of value on there that I can't provide through here. I just can't. I mean, at the end of the day, this is entertainment, but it's hard for me to help any individual win. I do that on there. There's spreadsheet. There's a Discord. You can ask me questions, without your league mates seeing it. There's DM tiers where you can ask me for advice. But the main thing is that it supports everything else. And without that, everything else isn't going to exist.
The Patreon spreadsheet. I ask myself, WWTD, what would Tyler do? And I take a look at it. I'm like, is this a decent value? Even though my opinions are different than Tyler's, it grounds me. It gives me a place to go and check my own biases.
The part of the year where I think it's worth the most is actually during the season, because I do a start sit spreadsheet every week. I reset it all every week. I get it out on Tuesday so you can do waivers. I do the best I can. And, I do the best I can during rookie season the rest of the year. But it's been hard to get people to sign up. I get it. Money's tight. The economy sucks. I get it. But if you like this, it's just not going to exist otherwise. It's too expensive. Like I said, I could do Twitter Spaces at no cost. I don't have to pay for StreamYard. I don't have to pay for Canva. It wouldn't cost me anything. So just keep that in mind. I tried to move Kamara, no takers. He can sit on my bench until he's playing. Well, that's what I would do until he's actually going to it. Once you get to a week, he's going to score points in that week. His value will go up because there's always one or two people in the league who see the points, see the projection, and then they're willing to give a pick that they wouldn't have given otherwise. So that's usually my take on players like that. If you didn't sell them before, now you kind of just have to wait.
Gotta wait it out. And that's everyone that we just said. Kamara, Cook, Hill, Hopkins. Gotta wait them out at this point. You're not going to get any value for him. Hill maybe, but
Hill, I think Hill, it depends on what you can get. With someone who's valued that highly, with a risk of very bad things happening, I'm sometimes okay selling a little bit low because I don't want to crap out on a really highly valued asset. It's why I was okay selling Deshaun Watson, not at a 90% discount, but at a 20, 30% discount. I was okay to do it and not take the chance because I don't want a highly valued asset to go to nothing. So, but on someone like Kamara, he's not valued that highly. So if he craps out and gives you nothing, then what did you lose? A late second that you didn't get? There's no downside. That's why I would hang on. Yeah, I appreciate that. It's not about the time. It's just about that, like, I offer that service and that costs money. And on the YouTube chat, I want to keep it to the questions that are good for entertainment. This is entertainment primarily. I offer a platform where there is no, I'll be honest, my Patreon is not that fun. It's not about fun. It's about helping you win. And there's a reason that costs money. Because I really, really work my ass off to help people win. On the show, I like to stick to the questions that I think are more entertaining. Helping one person break down their roster, has proven on the DLF show and this one, quickest way that the views go away is whenever I start talking about that. So nobody's interested in that. So that's why I don't cover those questions on the show, just as a general rule.
And honestly, man, like you mentioned the start sit stuff, that is like invaluable. And I feel like there's nobody better at doing it than Tyler. Like any advice I've followed throughout the season that he gave was a smash for me last year. And I kicked myself every time I didn't listen. So
it's also that I do my best to be responsive on Twitter, but there's only so much I can do. I get about 2,000 or 3,000 start sit questions a week. I'm human. But if you go through Patreon, you get to skip to the front of the line and get your question answered every time, which obviously is not going to happen on Twitter. I don't answer all the questions now, let alone in the season. I mean, I try to answer. If I answer 10% of them, I'm happy. So, it's the way to guarantee that you get an answer. Plus, you have the spreadsheet as well. And that'll tell you a lot of the answers. I always update it before the kickoff. So I try to do it at least an hour before. You have plenty of time to switch out those lineups. But I work really hard on doing that. At the end of the day, I try to do YouTube to provide entertainment and, encourage people to support me. But, at the end of the day, I'm stuck with the YouTube algorithm. And I know what plays and what doesn't. Appreciate the help with some of my many trades this offseason. I assume this means Twitter, and I appreciate that. I will say trades are very good for the show. Very specific trades. Side A or B are the best content on the channel. Trades or rankings. Pick player X or Y. Those play the best on a YouTube video. The more specific the question, the better. If it's vague, I usually prefer to just talk about stuff from my show sheet. So DeAndre Hopkins was close to signing with New England or Tennessee. New England, yes. Tennessee, no. I think he was just going to Tennessee to drum up interest. New England, I think, was more serious.
You see the Carolina stuff?
I did, and I actually addressed that today. I think that the only way he would go to Carolina if it's really all about the money. Carolina's not anywhere near winning anything. They're not a real contender. Now, neither is Tennessee. So that would be the same thing. New England, I think, is riding on Bill Belichick's reputation. I don't think they're that much of a contender.
I don't either.
But
at all.
They're riding on the reputation. I saw people dismissing Cleveland. I think that DeAndre Hopkins thinks that Deshaun Watson is going to be amazing. So I can understand why he would think that they're going to be a strong contender. I'm not sure I agree. But I can understand why, from his perspective, he would include them in that group. Carolina makes no sense. And the only way he would go there is if they're the one who offers 17, 18 million. They're going to have to overpay to get him significantly.
I think he's better off just waiting until, honestly, somebody gets injured and a team.
Well, that's not a guarantee, though.
It's not a guarantee, but
at running back, I'd say that happens every year. Every year, there are running backs who are hurt in training camp. But wide receiver, it's not a guarantee. It's not as common. And it would have to be someone really good to make a difference.
every time someone gets signed, the amount of remaining cap in the league drops, and the amount of potential money to be spent on him and his contract goes down.
But if he truly wants that contender, if he's legit in what he says there, and you're looking at Tennessee, not a contender to me, right? You're looking at New England, not a contender to me. Panthers, definitely not a contender. Cleveland, I agree, not a contender. Like there's not that opportunity. So if you're this late in your career, you've made your money already, you kind of can choose your own path. I mean, I'd probably wait it out if I were him and just say, let me see what opens up. And then if not, then one of those other 3 teams, maybe I go play at a little bit of a discount. But see what happens.
Vance, of one of my patrons, who I told to ask this question in the chat. Having my inbox an offer to get Jamar Chase and give A.J. Brown and Kenneth Walker. Thoughts? Also have T, but could easily flip. Well, I wouldn't worry about having another wide receiver from the same team. I talk about that quite often in Dynasty. I don't worry about that. So that's not relevant. But the offer itself, I think, is more interesting. Chase or A.J. Brown and Ken Walker. I honestly think it's very close. I would lean toward Chase.
Me too.
But I get it. I get why you would do this. Obviously, before the draft, I would have gone with Brown and Walker, I think. But now, I think Chase is just... There's a universe in which A.J. Brown kind of has an off year. Ken Walker is benched, and Jamar Chase is the Dynasty wide receiver 1 next year, and he made a huge mistake. I think the risk is on the Brown and Walker side. I'd take Chase.
It's just wild how far Walker has fallen since Charbonnet's come in there, right?
Yeah, he's fallen very far. I have him at this point, I have him at Dynasty. Yeah, I mean, it's actually not that far. It's funny. I still have him at running back 8 in Dynasty, but it's not that he's fallen that far among running backs. He's fallen like almost 2 rounds in overall value.
I dropped him pretty significantly in Dynasty. I didn't even realize that. I might have to move him back up because I'm sitting there at like 14 for him. I'm like,
running backs are so concerning in Dynasty. Really, there's one running back that has no concerns, and it's Bijan Robinson. Everyone else has concerns.
That's why, and I know everybody always gives me shit for this, but that's why I like Najee Harris so much, because I feel like there's no threat to Najee Harris, and that team commits to one workhorse back.
A threat. Down the stretch, despite him looking better, his snap share was reduced to like 65%.
But the foot was hurt, though. That's the whole thing.
No. The foot was healthy. The foot was healthy down the stretch. He looked a lot better, but Jalen Warren was more involved. The problem, the threat is what if 65% becomes 55? That is a threat. A huge threat, because that's a big difference. 65 is already like kind of, that offense isn't great. 65% of the Steelers' offense is not a guarantee. If 65 becomes 55, then it's very, very scary. So that he absolutely has threats too. I would just say that everyone has threats. I'm worried about, at least I'm not worried that Jalen Warren is going to overtake Najee Harris. Kenneth Walker is younger, but I'm worried that he could be a backup. Zach Charbonnet is just as good as a prospect. He's just as good. The only difference is that Kenneth Walker has proven that he's successful in the NFL. That's a big deal. That's a big deal. That's a big difference. If they're similar prospects, but one has already been good in the NFL, I would, of course, prefer the similar prospect who was already good. But that doesn't mean that the other similar prospect couldn't overtake him and be even better. So that's why I would take Jamar Chase. It's just too much risk on the other side. A.J. Brown's also a little bit of a sell to me. I'm a little, I don't want to say concerned, but rankings that I see have him behind CeeDee Lamb. And I just don't agree at all. I don't agree with that. CeeDee Lamb was just as good, if not better, last year. I have him ranked higher in redraft, and he's younger. Why should A.J. Brown be ahead in Dynasty? I don't get it. That one I just do not under. He has higher target competition as well on an offense that's going to pass less. Why should A.J. Brown be ahead of CeeDee Lamb in Dynasty? It makes no sense. None at all. So he's a little bit of a sell to me. I think he's a little overvalued. Don't hear what I'm not
I'll say-
saying. I still like him.
I'll say this for Vance: if you're interested in flipping T, and if you think that T might potentially lose value in the eyes of your league mates and its resale value with you adding Jamar, get that offer in your inbox, accept both of them back to back, and
I love
watch the
that.
league explode. That's entertainment.
You
That's
ever
the things
seen
we
me?
want to see.
You've seen me do
Watch
that.
Watch the league chat flood. Take screen record it. Just be ready for it as everyone gets these notifications and their reactions to it, because you just made two big moves revolving around three of the top 10 dynasty wide receivers going to two different teams all at the same time. That's why I play Dynasty. That's the entertainment
Love
side
that.
of it.
Yep.
Regardless of winnings, this is fun. That's the entertainment.
Also, I will say I actually like T. Higgins. His current price is very low. His trade price is even lower. So T. Higgins is more of a buy for me. I don't think you're going to be flipping him in a way that I like. Oh. Ed is one of my longest. I don't know if he's my first patron, but he's one of the first. He's one of the first patrons. And, he's saying that I basically pay for myself and all that and how hard I work. I appreciate that. I do work really hard. I feel like customer acquisition has been harder. Like, I feel like I'm spending more and more time on customer acquisition, and it's overwhelming. So at some point, I might just give up on things like this that at the end of the day are customer acquisition and just decide it's not worth it and just focus all my time on Patreon and get a lot more sleep. So, I hope that that's not the case, but I will have to see. I definitely feel like I'm burnt out at the end of almost every day. So I'm not going to be able to continue doing things the way that they are done currently forever. It's tough. My Patreon isn't very profitable. My YouTube channel is very much the opposite of that. It is I often liken it to a money pit in which money is burned and literally lit on fire. So it's tough. It's tough when I see it that way and when I struggle so hard on YouTube to get any sort of traction. It's not like Twitter, where even if Twitter doesn't cost me anything. All it costs me is time. I don't have to pay to use it. I guess I pay $7 a month for Elon's check mark. But that's not much compared to StreamYard or Canva. Let's see. Next question. PPR Dynasty Superflex contender. Traded 24 mid-first, 25 second, Isaiah Hodgson 24 third for Breece Hall and Jerick McKinnon. Win or loss? Well, there was some news today that Breece Hall might not play week 1 and that the Jets believe in Israel Abanikanda to make an immediate impact. Well, I'll just say that I don't really believe it. The Jets' actual coaching staff has said that Breece Hall will play week 1. Most of the medical experts that I've talked to have said that Breece Hall should be ready to play week 1. So I'll take Breece Hall.
I'll take Breece.
I may play week 1.
What did you say?
I might do it. I might play week 1.
You will?
I might. I may. I might not.
Why not?
I don't know.
I love that.
But you heard it here first on the Dynasty Risks Dynasty Fantasy Football Show.
I appreciate it.
I might not play week 1.
You might not play. Well, I might not play week 1 either. Another question. Just spent 2 firsts for Wilson to pair with Rodgers. Do I cash out and try to trade both for an elite quarterback? Well, I always love that. Such as Herbert or Lawrence. Well, if the question is Wilson and Rodgers for Herbert or Lawrence, I would take Herbert or Lawrence in that scenario. If that's the question, if that's what's being asked, I would take Herbert or Lawrence there.
He's basically trading 2 firsts and Rodgers for one of those quarterbacks.
Exactly, which I would do. So that the answer is a yes. I have Israel already too, so I'm covered a bit. Yeah, we'll have to see I'm hoping we don't have to worry about who the Jets backup is. I will say that Breece Hall is slightly concerning in a redraft perspective, but I'm still going to draft him and hope for the best. He's too talented. We saw he was like an RB1 and not like a RB1 as in, an RB1. He was like the RB1 in the making. So we did get to the end of the chat. So I do have some things that on the show sheet that I wanted to talk about. The first thing I want to address is I dropped a short this week on the Pierre Strong hype or lack thereof that I believe. But there was a sleeper alert that dropped about that Pierre Strong was going to get a role. I said that I would sell him, that he's not good. Players who do almost nothing as a rookie don't tend to succeed. He's in that group. I believe he had 10 carries or something like that. Not much. He had plenty of opportunity to get on the field, and he didn't do it. So I'm not super interested in him. Does anyone have a different take? But go check out the short. It's on the channel. It's 49 seconds. Yeah, anyone else have a different take on that? I just wanted to promote the video a little bit. No?
Shout out Michael in the chat, though.
Yeah, no, I saw that. I appreciate that. And right now I'm giving away a free trial until the end of June. And then no more free trials, but until the end of June. So the rest of today and 3 more days, if you sign up, I will give you a free trial of my Patreon. It's a new feature that Patreon just instituted only for the $5 and $11 tiers. If you want to sign up the higher tier, go for it. It's worth it, I promise. But tough to give away free trials of that. But $5 and $11 tiers, free trial for 7 days. And if you don't like it, just cancel it. If you say it's not worth it, then you tried it and I can't fault you. You tried it, you didn't like it, and that's fine. But 7 days, free trial. So I hope a lot of people try it out. Then how do you assess Kyler's risk for this year and the future? Well, I wish Ryan were here, but he has a lot to say. But for me, I think there's a lot of risk. He's hurt. Cardinals have the Texans' first-round pick next year. Oh, there you are.
What? What's going on?
We're talking about Caleb Williams.
Oh, yeah.
The sell window.
Future Arizona Cardinal. Yeah.
We said Caleb Williams 3 times and you just appeared.
I know.
Always.
It's like Beetlejuice.
Always be here when we're talking about Caleb Williams.
Yeah, so I'd say he's pretty risky, but at this point, he's more of a buy than a sell. I wrote the article for DLF, the Risers, Fallers, Long Shot. I wrote the template for that. The template actually was the Arizona Cardinals. I chose to, I actually had a Michael Wilson article coming in as well. But I chose not to write about Kyler Murray as either a riser or a faller. Marquise Brown is the faller in that article. Chose not to write about Kyler because he's a quarterback in Superflex who has rushing upside. I don't think he's actually going to fall that far.
You mean future Tampa Bay Buccaneer Kyler Murray?
Huh. Wouldn't that be interesting? But he's risky. I won't draft him. Someone that I know is going to miss the start of the season, there's no reason to draft them now. He's only going to decrease in price. So he'd have to decrease to a point in which I'm okay with it, which is a decent size drop.
I think he's a perfect buy for rebuild teams.
If he's cheap.
Especially with max points. If you're getting him at QB 12 value, and if for some reason someone held on to him through the entire offseason, and they're getting to like week 6, week 7, they get some injury, they can go out and buy a top 10, top 12 quarterback from you. They can go buy Deshaun Watson for you. I'd rather have Kyler Murray over Deshaun Watson. And on a rebuild team, suddenly I've got now Kyler Murray, who's getting ready to come back from injury, who I think Kyler Murray is going to be better than Deshaun Watson. And now my team's in a better spot. I want him on every single rebuild I've got. It's only 1 or 2 because I win my leagues. But
you're supposed to win leagues. I thought it was just about the friends you made along the way.
It often is. But you got to win leagues. You got to make it profitable, which is why I'm waiting for super chats in here from people that want to spend more than just a Patreon money. Because I want to cheer and do random shit because you guys spent money on the show. I like doing this show. I like it when we make money on this show. But we'll see. Let's see.
Kyler's kind of a weird one for me because he does have that, like, I don't know that I trust the football commitment. I know that sounds really lame to say, but he's been a concern of me since he was on that Dan Patrick show and like couldn't answer a question. Are you playing football or baseball? There's something about him that like long-term scares me.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think my favorite thing about Kyler is when he's on the field, he is a top 8 in points per game as a fantasy quarterback. And you're not getting that from anyone. You're not getting that from Justin Herbert right now. Last year, what was he? Quarterback 12, quarterback 15. And we're ranking him as a top 4, top 5 guy, and they're roughly the same age, about 1 year coming out difference. Yes, Kyler has a serious ACL injury, but Konami code quarterback, who's already gotten paid, Ryan fully believes in Caleb Williams to the Cardinals, but when you get that much money tied up in Kyler, something's got to give.
He's always going to have a home. There's not enough starting quarterbacks in the NFL where you have to worry about Kyler Murray starting. And honestly, if he left the Cardinals, it might be a better
spot for him. Yes,
so
absolutely.
Let me ask you, because there was a trade that went down that I saw in a 14-team league where a rebuilding team traded for Kyler. They gave up a 2024 first. I feel like that's pretty nice value for Kyler.
Mm-hmm.
So the rebuilding team gave up their first?
The rebuilding team gave up their first to get Kyler for the fact that it's hard to get quarterbacks in the 14-team Superflex. You're talking about 28 guys.
It depends on how deep in the rebuild you are. Are you a rebuild team that thinks you're going to finish like 6th, 7th, 8th and just outside the playoffs? Or are you thinking 1, 2, 3, Caleb Williams, Marvin Harrison Jr. next year?
That's
really the big question. Shout out to the Rum Boys. I am one of the Rum Boys. You can find me there usually on Friday nights as well when my internet's working well. And this is my boss Robbie. Come in. What are we doing for a donation? Shots?
Oh, jeez.
I don't have shots. I do have cookies. I am a cookie monster. I will do some cookie monster shit. And
I gotta see that.
If that's what the people want,
that's what the people want.
I've got a whole case of famous Amos cookies next to me, and I will do some cookie monster shit.
Dang, you need to share. I need some. I
know I'm hungry right now.
Yeah, what the heck?
So that's what we're doing. Where do you think? So David Gillespie, check him out with TBQ Sports as well. Coming into the chat. Where do y'all think D Hop is going to go? We've talked about this a little bit already. Do we want to do? Can Ryan give us a quick summary of where you think he's going?
Yeah, so I feel like, I know that they're saying, New England, Tennessee, Carolina popping into the picture today. I think I mentioned this before, but just I feel like Hopkins needs to wait it out with those situations. Ultimately, I feel like he's going to end up in New England. I think he's using the other teams as leverage to try to up some money from New England. I don't, if he really wants to, again, play for that contender, I just don't see any of those teams being the contender. I miss the days when it was like, is Hopkins going to go to KC or Buffalo? That was really exciting. That was sexy, right? Like, what are you going to do with D Hopkins in KC or Buffalo? That would have been amazing. But
someone went into my mention saying that he was going to go to Washington.
Oh my God, dude, forget it. I would be through the frickin' moon if he went to Washington. That's not even fair to me. Don't tease that.
You.
Don't tease that.
Oh,
they do have cap space.
Hey, I am nothing if not a tease.
When's the OnlyFans shopping?
Oh, actually, there's a possibility that it's happening. I'm in negotiations.
Like, is it costing like a first and a second?
No, it costs at least 3 bucks. Come on. What? We're doing a donation?
We're trying to get a donation.
What are we doing? What am I donating?
No, they're going to donate to us, like super chats.
Oh, what are they donating?
Usually money, things that can be spent at the store.
Okay, I was going to say if I was making a donation, I will. If anyone gives an $100 super chat, I will. I'll send you. I don't know what should I send them for a $100 super chat?
I'm doing Cookie Monster shit like $5. So
$5. I respect the hustle.
I'll send you any 30-second non-naked video that you want. $100 super chat.
But so I just looked it up, by the way, because we got Hopkins up still here. Not to take away from your 30-second video, but Washington does have $11.57 million in cap space. I don't think he's getting $11 million offers from anywhere. So,
yeah,
contender. There you go.
Put something up. I just did. 30-second video for $100 of anything that is not porn.
Robbie, this is not water. You know what I drink during live streams.
Is that what? Everclear?
Dilly Dilly.
I don't know what that is.
It's our Rum Boys toast. Dilly Dilly, guys.
Oh, I thought it was Everclear.
On a Tuesday?
Okay, so in college, when I used to have a major, well, sort of a drinking problem. I don't know. Was it a problem or was it a party? Who knows? But I would always do that. I did that during my final exams. I had a 3.8 GPA in college.
Yeah, I did.
I do want to shout out Ed. After he dropped in our league chat that there's reports that Patrick will not be playing in week 1.
Well, I would if someone in that league would trade with me. That would be really nice. But they've all realized that trading with me is often not a good idea.
How does that relationship work? So I know Ed's in that league with you as well, and he's one of your Patreons. How does that work?
It works just fine. I think Ed has a lot more teams than that one. So we haven't really
absolutely he does.
talked about that team.
Winning leagues are overrated, though. It's all about that off-season championship.
Yeah, it is.
We appreciate you. You got apparently I have auto star super chats on, but you should ask a question. We'll answer your question too. I do appreciate the donation, but I want to answer your question. Ask me a question about Patrick. That's good. Ask me a question about Patrick. For super chat, I'll answer a question I wouldn't ordinarily answer.
Oh, geez.
Oh, yeah. How about that? Think about that for a second.
The incentives are rising.
Oh, yeah. No, for a $10 super chat or higher, I'll answer mean questions about my co-hosts. So if anyone wants to put in a $10 super chat or higher, I'll say something mean.
And if you really want just an all Tyler show next week, do a bunch of those, and then none of the co-hosts will come back next week.
Next week, we're doing a Scott Fishbowl draft on July 4th. We talked about this a little bit. How much of an impact do you think Zach Charbonnet has on Kenneth Walker this season and in Dynasty? Do you think it'll be a split or will Walker remain a starter? All right, well, my rankings, the fantasy footballers talked about this today, and they were kind of mixed on the issue. I have... In PPR, I have Kenneth Walker at RB 17 and Zach Charbonnet at 34. What that means is that I think Kenneth Walker will be the clear lead to start off, and it'll become more even as the season goes on. That's my opinion.
So,
what's up?
I feel like one of the things that I found very interesting was, do you guys look at Michael Clay's projections at all?
I've perused them. but not overly so. But I have perused them, especially in the past. Not really this year.
What I was very surprised on with his projections, and I respect him a lot, was he had
done
more,
it for
many years, and he has more receptions projected from Kenneth Walker, 29, than Zach Charbonnet, 25. I would have expected to see more on the Charbonnet side.
I think that's saying that Kenneth Walker is going to just have more work as it starts off, and Charbonnet is going to have to work into a role. And that it's kind of what I'm saying, that Charbonnet is going to take more of a role as it goes, but it's not going to be enough to make it up. I do think long-term Charbonnet is better in the receiving game. I'm just not sure that he's going to exceed him this year.
The only interesting thing is I think he might be better than Kenneth Walker is from day one as like a pass protector. So now I know there's a learning curve in the
Seattle
NFL.
They're veterans.
He also has Kenneth Walker at 224 carries to Charbonnet's 136. Now, having said that,
sounds about right.
That sounds about right. And if you think about Kenneth Walker and the price he was going at before the draft, like if you're telling me he's going to get 985 yards on the ground and he's going to get, 29 receptions for 211, you could see the impact. You could see the hit to the projections right there. And I actually think that's kind of conservative on Charbonnet. So I think the impact's going to be pretty significant.
Charbonnet is way too low in redraft rankings that I've seen. I have him at 34. I think other people have him he's outside the top 40, which I don't agree with. I'd rather take a chance on Charbonnet than some guys that are ahead of him, like Jamal Williams or Rashad Penny. I've seen ahead of him. I'd rather take my chance.
Oh God, yeah. Penny?
I know.
That's gross. That's gross.
Thoughts on Week 17 correlation in big tournaments? I got to tell you, I don't play a lot of these. But does anyone have anything to say about this? Because for me, this is an I don't play this.
I hate Week 17 and anything that matters. I hate it. It's just...
No, it's Week 18.
My teams are...
So Week 17 is good.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. My bad.
I mean, it's nice. Correlation's always nice, especially when you think you could, advance to the finals. But it's not make or break because I forget. I know it's Chiefs Bengals is the big one that everyone's like, oh my gosh, I need to stack this, and it's impossible because the ADPs are too high. And then, I mean, that's the one. That's the one that they gave us. They're like, here you go. You like fantasy? Congratulations. Have a Chiefs Bengals fantasy finals matchup. I've been doing a lot of Miami, Baltimore ones because I feel like the ADP works well, and I could stack them, and it could sneaky be a shootout, especially for Mark playing.
The reason I don't do a lot of this is there's no demand for it. There's no demand for how can I help someone with that? How can I sell that? There's no demand for that. There's no demand for that. Might be demand for a show on it. But there's zero demand for that Patreon-wise, unfortunately. So that's why I don't do it. It's a business decision. Because those are all fast drafts.
Well, they're not all.
Pretty much.
There's 8-hour clocks.
There's been no demand for it, though. So, wouldn't that be nice? I wouldn't bet on it.
I still can't believe he's above Charbonnet. That's nuts.
And redraft he is, yeah.
Don't like that.
Is this another Week 17 matchup? That one sounds fun.
That does sound fun.
One thing I'm going to start looking at is Week 1.
You know what's crazy?
What?
Sorry. The Detroit Lions had the 4th ranked offense last year and got shut out in one game.
That is kind of insane. The other thing that's insane is that they traded TJ Hawkinson away and their offense improved.
They're already set. I saw a tweet about the NFL season coming up, and they're already setting traps. I gotta make sure this is right. Yeah, it is. The 49ers are only 3-point favorites against the Steelers Week 1.
Uh-oh.
That feels like the golden trap. It feels like I should bet Pittsburgh, but what do you do? So
is that line because of the quarterback uncertainty and they're hedging on maybe Darnold starting?
Has to be. It has to be, right? Seems too good.
I mean, they could get Bears again, where it's a bad weather game and
I know, but
things are out of their control week 1.
they could, but like it's so far away. They don't do weather predictions that far out.
Do you guys bet on games?
No.
Sometimes.
I
So
don't
yes.
touch them. I cannot enjoy a game if I bet on it. I know that's the opposite of most people, and that's why that industry
That's
does
not why
so
I
well.
don't do it.
I don't know.
It
what
has
drive that
nothing to
is.
do with my enjoyment of the game.
See, I'm the opposite. Like I enjoy it less when I bet on it, but I feel like I can make money because like I feel like I'm decent at it, and then it just yeah.
If you know it, you can make money. Player props. If you have an idea of who's going to do really well, there's money to be made.
Except the
there's a lot of
touchdown
that.
ones; those are scams. Trust me, I
actually,
know.
Actually, I'm looking at my giant TV in my living room that I won off of a site that no longer exists because I made too much money off of them, and they're no longer allowed to be run in Michigan, called Monkey Knife Fight. And I won off TD Dance, where you had to choose 3 players in the game and choose how many touchdowns at least they were going to get, either 2+, 3+, 4+, and that changed how much your multiplier was. I made a killing off of them, and in so doing so, bought a very nice television last year.
Are you the reason they got banned?
I am the reason Monkey Knife Fight
Okay.
went out of business.
What's the name? Monkey Knight or Knife?
You've
Knife.
never heard of Monkey Knife Fight?
No.
They were just before Underdog really kicked in. The Underdog kind of took in their clientele a little bit.
Okay.
Yeah.
Underdogs
True.
rules the world, you know.
I feel left out.
Good
Don't
times.
worry, it was illegal in PA too the whole time. So.
Don't get mad. Get glad.
Oh god.
And now Michigan is illegal to do Underdog or Monkey Knife Fight or any of those daily fantasy prop betting. Besides, I can still do DraftKings and FanDuel and all that shit.
Where would I be without those sites? Probably a lot more money in my wallet, but a whole lot of fun.
I mean, money and fun, you know. Who do you guys believe will be the Giants wide receiver 1? I know Waller will dominate the target share. I mean, but between Hyatt, Hodgins, Campbell, Darius Slayton, do you expect any to be a viable starter in redraft or dynasty? The answer is no.
I'll save my Paris Campbell propaganda for another day.
Yeah, the answer is no. Sorry.
If I'm taking anybody from there, I'm taking Jalen Hyatt. And I know a lot of people don't like Jalen Hyatt.
I will warn you. It's not going well. It's not currently going well for Jalen Hyatt.
Oh yeah?
Boy,
I feel like we got some inside scoop here.
Well, a little birdie told me that he's not doing so well, and that he needs to step it up.
Interesting.
Yeah. Little birdie flew from my house to the Giants facility, and
That's pretty crazy. Is this like Harry Potter? With like
Well,
the acceptance
you
letter?
know,
Owl.
yeah, he is doing very poorly at camp. He's. I wouldn't be surprised if he's inactive for week 1.
Imagine being
Yeah.
that bad of a Giants receiving room and getting drafted into it and potentially not making the 53.
Yeah, he's moved down in Dynasty for me, almost a round or more of value. I'm feeling some Jalen Tolbert vibes.
Uh-oh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Uh-oh. It's real.
Yeah.
At least that'll still be better than Kenny Galladay, though.
Well, Kenny Galladay scored 1 touchdown last year.
Did he really?
Yeah, apparently.
I wouldn't believe you.
I will say I am highly concerned. Hope that it starts to work out, which is why I haven't moved him down too far, because things could change in training camp just early on. But it's not good. It's not good. With that said, that doesn't mean I want anyone else.
Can I say I'm not surprised by that fact? It's not Jalen Hyatt, the player, that I want to go in on. It's just the simplicity of Tennessee's offense in college. They just asked that man to run go routes like 65% of the time. Like, I'm not dissing him as a player, but that offense is just
He did the same thing
So-
Henry Ruggs did. Just
In
go.
redraft, you want to hear something interesting? I have Isaiah Hodgins at 69, Paris Campbell at 70, and Darius Slayton at 71. So I hedged. Didn't rank Jalen Hyatt. I would say Isaiah Hodgins had the most success down the stretch last year. Paris Campbell's getting the most hype, and Darius Slayton was paid the most. So it's kind of a toss-up for me.
Hutchins had flashes where he was, looking serviceable. He gave
Then
Washington
Sterling
some
Shepard
fits.
is also ready, because that's going to really help. It's not good. It's not good. I would just it's a low passing volume offense, bad offense. I don't see a need. This is not where I'm taking my shot. Because if I'm right, and Wan'Dale Robinson is still there too. He's the one I have the highest. I have him at 48. So I guess I believe in him the most. But yeah, it's too messy. I don't see one. If the question is this, I don't see one guy emerging over the others.
Waller's the only receiver that I have any interest in within that offense.
I have some interest in Wan'Dale Robinson because this coaching staff drafted him. He has more draft capital than Hyatt. But they re-signed all these guys.
That's a good call because nobody ever brings him up in those comparisons.
No, no one ever brings him up. I do. Jalen Tolbert is not even worth a taxi spot anymore. What could have been, But
that Senior Bowl.
I will say, the Giants, I don't know. Strange. They just have so many wide receivers. Why so many? I mean, Robinson, they have second-round pick. Hyatt was the third-round pick this year. They gave Campbell and Slayton, decent money. And then they also still have Hodgins, who was better last year.
Isn't Jamison Crowder there too?
And Crowder's there. It's just very
Everyone.
strange.
Crowder is more than capable, and I think he'll be better for NFL football than he actually will be for anything fantasy. And I think all these wide receivers together is serviceable for Danny Dimes. I think
it means that
it's enough.
It means that if there's one injury, they'll still be mediocre.
I just need to know the wide receiver to get in this offense is the one who starts in the slot because he's going to be the
Probably
best one.
Wan'Dale Robinson then.
Yeah, that is a good case for
It's
Robinson.
not going to be Jalen Hyatt.
We could be anybody. Sterling Shepard, Jamison Crowder, all of those guys.
I know.
Paris
Crowder,
Campbell.
Jesus,
I'm
I
over
forgot
it.
they
Yeah,
had Crowder.
I'm over
That's
it.
just a
And
mess.
they have every slot wide receiver you could imagine.
Crowder, if he makes that team, good for him. He's so.
I don't want to shame people for misuse activity, but the New York Giants have got to have the slottiest roster in the NFL.
Bruh. All right. Any belief that Isaiah Hodgins will see a next level for the Giants? No.
I was gassing him up so much last year when he was doing
Same.
his thing. I was just enjoying it. I'm like, this guy could be a legitimately good football player. But alas,
Things
No,
that
they
you
wouldn't
hype
have
up
brought
in
the
week
other guys
15
back.
no, they
to
wouldn't
get through your redraft playoffs.
They wouldn't have brought the other mediocre guys back if they thought Isaiah Hodgins was going to.
He will have a nice long career, and that's what I'll say.
Yeah, that's true. All right. What did we think today? There was Josh Jacobs holdout news. I had a pretty strong take on that, but what did you guys think, if anything?
I'm a little bit concerned on some of those running backs. I know, is there any banding together? I mean, there's no incentive with the new CBA to do anything, and we talked about that last time, how bad it was for the players. But
I need that to happen. I need the running backs to just say, hey, maybe I'll just not show up today. All of them. Like a senior CPH kind of deal, but for running backs.
The good news is I don't have any guys on those 1-year contracts in most of my leagues, so let it happen.
Josh Jacobs concerns me a lot. Because unlike the Saquon Barkley, I said this on Twitter, I'll say it again. I don't think there's any interest that the Raiders have in signing Josh Jacobs to a long-term deal at all.
No.
At all. I don't think they're interested in signing him, period. I don't think they even really wanted to give him the tag. But I figured they could look 1 year ahead and they didn't have a choice. But I don't think they want to sign him at all. Or if they do, it's not to anything he'd agree to. They might, if he was interested in signing a 2-year, $20 million deal, they might sign it. He's not interested in that. So they're not going to reach an agreement. So this is going to be ugly. Whereas I'm still holding out hope that the Giants and Saquon Barkley could reach an agreement. I think there's more common ground there. I do not think that the Raiders want Josh Jacobs past this season. And if he comes out this season and balls, they're willing to give him a second franchise tag. And then let him walk after that. So I think they're interested in playing hardball, and I don't think that it's going to end well. So Josh Jacobs is scary. Raiders are dumb? No, they're not, unfortunately. They're not, unfortunately. They're actually very smart, and it sucks. But if you replace Josh Jacobs with someone else, it wouldn't have changed anything. You could have the thing people forget is that you can have multiple players replace one. You're going to have depth running backs no matter what. So if you give one guy 90% of the touches, or you give three guys 90% of the touches between them, it changes nothing. That's the problem. You could pay 3 guys a fraction of the cost and get the same production because you're going to have 3 running backs anyway. That's the issue.
The scary thing, and I didn't really realize this, is if a player hasn't signed the franchise tag tender yet, the team can rescind the offer.
They can.
I didn't realize that, and that makes that situation pretty interesting. Like there's no risk of that with Saquon Barkley. Giants aren't going to do that. They're not going to rescind it with him. I think he actually legitimately is in their long-term plans. To your point with Jacobs, I don't think the Raiders have any interest in that. So
at the end of the day, I feel like it's still noise. It's noise on June 27th, 2023. And call me when it's August. Call me when it's getting to the point where it's concerning.
Oh, I'm already concerned. I'm already concerned because on July 17th is the deadline to sign a long-term deal. If it doesn't happen, nothing is going to change from July 17th to September 1st. Nothing will change during that period of time. And anything could happen at that point. Is he really just going to not show up? Well, you're not going to know after that.
There's no benefit to him for not showing up. He's going to show up.
The benefit to not showing up is if he's so petty to make a point. That's the benefit. He can't be fined.
I was just going to say, he can't be fined if he doesn't sign the tender.
But he also doesn't accrue the year, and he can still be under the tender.
It's different under a franchise tag. The rules are very different. Under a franchise tag, if you show up after some period of time, he can show up any point before week 10, sign the tender, the year still counts, and the next franchise tag would be based on the original franchise tender amount. So if he's really petty, he could stick it to them if he really wants to. Players on the franchise tag have power that players on a regular contract essentially have no power. Player on a regular contract has to come to work. If they don't report by week 1, the whole year is lost. So they have zero leverage. But a player on a franchise tag has some. So he could make it very ugly for them if he decided that being petty and being vindictive was more important. He can do it without the same risk as another player.
Without the $10 million risk?
Well-
that's essentially the gamble he's making. And
He
it's the
could
same
show
one
up
we saw
at
with
any
Le'Veon
time.
Bell. And at that point,
No, I think honestly, his move would be, I'm going to hold this over you for the whole season. I could show up at any time, and you're going to have this $10 million cap charge for me that you're stuck with for the whole year. I can show up at any time and cause a lot of disruption. This is all people are going to talk about. We're going to talk about it. All they're going to talk about is this. We're going to talk about this. Or you can rescind the tag and let me sign with someone else.
Yep.
You can just threaten. It's a nice football team you have there. It'd be a shame.
Is it really though?
It would be a shame. No, it's not in this case. But it would be a shame if something happened to it. And he could threaten to cause so much disruption and so much of a problem that they just decide to rescind the franchise tag.
Who's paying him after causing that much disruption?
That's a great question. This is why I'm saying it's not logical. So the only reason he'd do it, Josh Jacobs is not logical. Josh Jacobs told the fantasy football community to go fuck itself. He posted on Twitter about bad business. Did you see that? Bad business. What does that mean? Josh Jacobs is not logical. And he doesn't strike me as a very nice guy. So I could easily see him pulling this move. Didn't work out for Le'Veon Bell, really. But just because it's dumb doesn't prevent him from doing it. Melvin Gordon's holdout didn't pay off. But he did it anyway, right? It wasn't smart, but he did it. So we're not evaluating. It's like fantasy. We're not necessarily evaluating what the smart thing is. We're evaluating what's likely to happen. And Josh Jacobs strikes me as the kind of person, from what he said on Twitter, what he said about the fantasy community, a lot of other things, as the kind of person who would do it. So I am worried. And I'm glad I have none, because I am not in on Josh Jacobs, really. I'm glad I have none, because I am very concerned that he's not going to show up. Saquon Barkley, I think it's all noise. I actually think the Giants and Saquon Barkley get the deal done before July 17th. I do not think Josh Jacobs and the Raiders get the deal done. And I think this is very ugly, and I think it becomes a big problem. This is my take on the situation. As to answer this, I talked about it in a video there, but I think the Raiders are a possibility. I mean, what if the Raiders decided, I mean, that's another element to this. What if the Raiders decided, we're tired of dealing with this? We'll sign Ezekiel Elliott. He's willing to play for us for, say, $3 million. We'll rescind your tag, Josh Jacobs. We decided we're good. We don't want you at all. We don't have to pay you $10 million this year. We'll pay Ezekiel Elliott $3 million, or Leonard Fournette. What about him? $3 million.
Dalvin Cook.
Dalvin Cook, I think, is too expensive for them. I think Dalvin Cook was still good last year.
Yeah.
I think Dalvin Cook is drumming up a lot of interest. I don't think it's worth it to rescind Jacobs' tag for $10 million and sign Dalvin Cook for 6 or 7. But what about Leonard Fournette? You could sign him for $3 million. Maybe they decide they don't want to pay Jacobs $10 million tag. They rescind it. Then he could go somewhere else. He's fine even in a new location? Well, that's a great question. Where is he going to sign if the tag is rescinded in August? I don't know. Is he going to be as good in a new location in that scenario? Absolutely not. He's not going to find a scenario where he's ranked where I have him now. Right now, I have him ranked as RB7 in redraft. He's not going to mysteriously work his way to a scenario in August on a new team where he's ranked RB7. Anyway.
Put him in Minnesota for all the Alexander Madison.
He wouldn't be ranked RB7 there.
I know he wouldn't, but
no, he'd be ranked like RB. They would split work.
He could go to the Jets.
He go to the Jets. I mean, he wouldn't be ranked RB7 there.
They always love running
so
backs.
I'm just saying, he's fine in a new location, but it's not going to be what he has now, where he has all the volume.
There's nobody taking volume from him right now.
Nobody, yeah. Zamir White. I had someone try to pitch me Zamir White.
Oh, God.
He's so bad. I mean, after both ACL tears, he has no burst left. Be water. Well, I am water. He's talking about bad business. He's saying he doesn't want to show up. That is being water. That's what he said. That's new. It's new information. He's saying he doesn't want to show up. He's acting like he doesn't want to show up. He doesn't want to play. He's going to cause a lot of problems. I think we should factor that in. Why not? It's new information. Well, I think there's a lot of problems that could happen between now and then. We'll have to see.
That's not how the song goes.
I get that from a financial perspective, and I understand the running back position is super devalued. I am not a fan of that decision. Well, I agree. I think they should have just not tagged him. Why play this game? If you don't want him, just let him go. You get drafted a rookie for cheap and not played the tag game. That was a choice. Too. We forget that. They didn't have to do this. No one's going to trade for Jacobs on an expensive deal. So they didn't have to tag him. They didn't have to do this.
I think that there's a reality where he could get due to injuries or something. He could get traded before the season with a sign and trade.
Well, he still won't be able to extend.
But he's not going to play, and he's not going to play with that. Yeah, if it's a good point, because after the 17th,
but they have the rights to him. You could see it similar to like a Devontae Adams trade, where it's all right. We got the rights to him. We're trading him to another team, getting something back in return, and with the expectation that he signs the deal and that deal's already set up and made.
Well, no, but if that happens after July 17th, he still can't sign it with the new team. That restriction would transfer over to the new team. So that still wouldn't be allowed. That would have to happen soon, which it could. I mean, it could happen soon.
Realistic, yeah, could over the next 2 weeks. But it would have to
happen before July 17th.
I see that happen. That's more likely to happen in my perspective than the Raiders rescinding the tag.
I think the Raiders
don't want nothing.
I think they would rescind the tag if we get to September 3rd and he's saying, I'm not coming in. They could rescind it in week 3. In the middle of the season. What if they signed Jacobs didn't show up for week 1. They signed Leonard Fournette and he played well. Then they could rescind the tag and just not deal with this anymore. They're not going to win anything anyway. What difference does it make? And they're not going to get anything back. The problem is that you're right that it's a temperamental market, but his best interest is to show up and play, sign the tag, and take the money. Because after July 17th, he has no choice, and the Raiders have no reason to help him. The Raiders' best play is to do nothing. Keep him on the tag and do nothing. If he doesn't want to show up, he's not acting in his own best interest. He's not. He's going to not earn money that he's never going to see again. Didn't work out for Melvin Gordon. He's not acting in his own best interest. So if you're not acting in your own best interest, you're either trying to prove a point or you're being petty. And in his case, I think it's more being petty. If you can't tell, I'm not a fan of Josh Jacobs. He rubbed me the wrong way.
What says you?
Yeah, he rubbed me the wrong way when he told the fantasy community to go fuck himself. Go fuck himself. So I'm not a big fan of Josh Jacobs. He's not high on my list of players I have sympathy for. Yeah. It's very simple. He can sign the franchise tag and make money, or he can not sign it, not show up, and not make money that he's never going to see again. So if he does the thing that's not in his own self-interest, then he's acting emotionally and not rationally. Kind of sounds like being petty. If there was something to gain, I would say go for it, but there's nothing to gain. After July 17th, he's stuck. So it's kind of how I feel. What I think the problem is that they need to do something about this. This is a problem. The whole thing is a problem. The way running back salaries are structured is a problem. The way the running back position is compensated in the NFL is a problem. This is a problem that needs to be addressed. It is a problem. You have players that are high-profile players that are not being compensated appropriately when they're very important to like fantasy football, the betting markets, a lot of other things. They're not being compensated appropriately because running backs' careers are so short. There is probably an argument to compensate them differently somehow. I don't know how you do that, but I think it's something you could work into a CBA somehow. But I don't know what you do about it between now and then. I would argue that it's not good for football to have this kind of drama. So that might provide the NFL an incentive to deal with it earlier. But I don't feel like they're that incentivized, even now. So I'm not sure what will be done. But
What
I
if
do
there's
think it's
actually
something-
incentives? What if the incentives that are in these contracts are actually incentives more than
Well, you have to get it in the rookie deal somehow.
$200,000?
That's the problem. The
Yeah.
problem is that running backs are already losing value by year 3 or 4. The problem is that rookie contracts are standardized by the draft pick, not the position, the draft pick.
Mhm.
And then contracts after that are done by position. But the problem is by the time running backs are eligible for a new contract, they're already on the backside of their career.
You just
But
played
people aren't
2 to 4
paying it.
years. You just played 4 years as a second round pick, and Breece Hall was the first running back off the board, taken in the beginning of the second round, getting paid $900,000 a year for his first 4 years.
And then no one's going to want to pay the big contract when he comes up.
Yep, exactly that.
You can just draft another one. So it's a problem.
Don't raise your kids to be running backs.
It is a problem that needs to be addressed at a systemic level. But in the current situation, the Raiders are acting in their own best interest. And Josh Jacobs' best interest for now, for himself, is to show up, sign the tag, and play. If he doesn't want to do that, that's fine. But he's not acting in his own best interest, which is his right to do. I mean, he can do whatever he wants. But, I do also think that the problem is systemic. And they need to do something about it from a higher level. It's hard to blame the Raiders for acting in their own best interest because they're a team. They should try to win. The problem is the CBA in the first place.
Is Barkley regretting not signing his $12.5 million
absolutely. He's
per
regretting
year
it
extension?
because I think the offer was pulled off the table and it's gone down now.
Yeah, it has.
I was hopeful with the Deebo Samuel contract when he signed his, and that we would be moving towards more of a positionless football from wide receivers, running backs. And I was hopeful that was going to be the case, that we'd see those contracts moving that way. Le'Veon Bell being one of the first to be as a running back to say, hey, I'm more than just a running back. I do so
but
much
he's
more.
Not. He wasn't. That was the problem. He wasn't. The thing is that these running backs are replaceable. You
100%.
can replace one player with 3 at a third of the cost, so there's no point in paying any running back more than $10 million.
Look what it cost for the Eagles to get DeAndre Swift. It was nothing.
So it's just tough. It's tough. I don't know exactly how to solve this problem, but I do agree that that's one of those things. It's obvious it's a problem, but it doesn't have a clear solution. Those are always the difficult problems to solve. Clearly a problem, no clear solution.
There's not a door to open to fix that problem.
The door, yeah.
It's open for another 7 years.
Yeah, we can talk about that. The NFLPA really screwed themselves. But there's no door to fix the problem either. No one has any incentive to fix this problem. Really. Other than running backs. But they're a small percentage of the players in the NFL. A lot of the other NFL players. I mean, that's another thing. If you're another NFL player, do you want to give your money back to give more money to running backs? I mean, that's how it works. It's a pie.
At this point, you're going to hope for the quarterback to say, here's some extra gifts for you, just like he does for his linemen.
Yeah, it is a brutal situation. These are speaking of interesting questions, who is the favorite to be the worst team in the league right now? The Raiders, the Titans, or the Cardinals? I'd say the Cardinals.
Fuck it up. They're going to get like second or third worst. They're going to fuck it up somehow.
I don't think
Cardinals,
it's the Titans for me.
They'll win enough.
I don't think it's the Raiders. I think the Raiders have a little bit too much talent.
The Titans think
unless Jimmy G's foot is really that bad, because who plays
quarterback?
quarterback?
If Jimmy G can't play, then maybe the Raiders. But if Jimmy G is playing, the Raiders are good enough, even without Josh Jacobs, to win a couple of games. Unless Devontae Adams is holding out too. Then maybe not.
Yeah.
But the Titans are bad. I will tell you, the Titans are bad. They were abysmal down the stretch and are worse now than they were then.
I'm concerned their coach finds a way to win 5 games.
5 games.
I am concerned about that, but yeah, the Titans are on my list. Arizona's on my list. Houston still on my list. Although they don't have
I would go to Arizona.
Tampa Bay is on the list. They were not that great last year, and they have taken a major step back. So they're on my list. The Rams are on the list. They are like a couple injuries. Their team is very thin. They lost all their depth. They are like 2 injuries away from a disaster. So they're on my list. And then that's most of my list. Those are the really bad ones. Those are the really bad ones that I could say. Yeah, the Cardinals for me are top of the list. Number 1, they have the worst team. If Kyler Murray is out with no Kyler Murray, they are the worst team.
Not
with
a Colt
Kyler
McCoy
Murray.
believer? Come on.
No. Clayton Tune hype, you know? What's logical in the running back market right now? Nothing. I mean, the running backs are screwed. And this is a problem that needs to be solved. And I don't know how they're going to solve it, but until then, it's a problem. And it's not going to be... This is not a problem, unfortunately. I think Melvin Gordon and Le'Veon Bell should teach you and Todd Gurley should teach you what you need to know, which is that this is not a problem that's going to be solved by individual action. This is a problem that needs to be solved at a higher level, a collective level, a level of a special rule, because otherwise capitalism is going to reign and cap mechanics are going to reign. That there is no way to solve this without different rules. There's no other way. It's not going to be solved. It's not something that can be solved by taking a stand.
Absolutely. I saw Sean McVay had said something earlier this week about the Todd Gurley contract was his biggest learning point. And he's never going to make that mistake again. He'll happily have 3-4 guys on the roster.
He didn't quite say that, but Melvin Gordon said that he said that. He didn't quite say that, but he said something along those lines. But I agree with him. He's right.
I'll give him Todd Gurley's better than 3. Todd Gurley at the beginning of his contract was.
Problem is that none of the high paid years for Todd Gurley were the years that he produced.
None.
They were all the years after. So they could have just not signed the contract.
You're left at a point where we see it a lot in sports where players get these big contracts to pay for what they've been. And NFL ownership is starting to be wiser on that of what are we actually getting?
The problem is that running backs, the line between elite, good, replaceable, and out of the NFL are each very thin. So that's really the problem, is a wide receiver doesn't degrade as fast.
And if you look at the highest paid contracts, like Zeke Elliott got paid, did not deliver his value on that contract. Todd Gurley did not deliver his
high-paid
value
running back has really delivered? Derrick Henry?
McCaffrey,
but he was traded away by his original team.
Yeah, but his original team was really bad.
But that was fully because of his contract, though.
Yeah,
they'd rather get something for him versus nothing. McCaffrey was putting butts in seats.
It's tough. Most of the running back contracts are disasters.
Most of them
Joe
don't
Mixon is a disaster. I mean, Joe Mixon performed at a replaceable level.
Except that
over
one game.
The last 2 years. One game, yeah. I actually wrote about it today. He's totally replaceable. You just replace him with 2 people. The only thing he did that was good was volume.
No, they need to replace him with one person. And that person's in Denver now.
Samaje Perine look good.
Samaje Perine was more efficient over both of the last 2 years than Joe Mixon.
Mm-hmm. He made him look good.
But the thing is, you could just replace Joe Mixon with 2 people. And for a third of the price, and you'd be better off. That's the problem. You can't replace. That's really it. You can't replace Devontae Adams with 2 wide receivers and get the same production. It doesn't work that way. But you can replace Joe Mixon with 2 running backs and get the same production because only one running back gets on the field at a time.
This is what we get from analytics in sports.
Yep. But unfortunately, it's correct.
No, right? Oh, absolutely. I say it tongue in cheek, but it's true. This is the analytics of sports.
I do think some of the wide receivers, the mid-range wide receivers are overpaid. And I think that was corrected this offseason. You notice Jacoby Myers was not 4 for 90 like was speculated by some. So I think teams, again, got smarter that mid-range wide receivers are worth something. They're not worth what was paid in the previous offseason. Like they got smarter again that they're worth mid-tier value. About to be on the board.
On the board.
Who are you taking from this list? Jamal Williams, Michael Thomas, Tillman, Tank Dell, Jalen Warren, Jerome Ford, or DJ Chark? Man.
One of the rookies.
I actually have Michael Thomas ranked the highest of this list.
I like Michael Thomas there.
Go for it. Go for the slam dunk.
Yeah,
I mean,
none of these other players are enticing to me really at all.
Tank Dell's so small. The one intriguing piece there is like, is there really that chemistry between Stroud and Tank Dell? So I think those are the only two names that have like any intrigue to me on this board are Michael Thomas and Tank Dell.
Oh, Jalen Warren has intrigue to me. He's actually the one I have second ranked on this list. In terms of dynasty ranking, I have Thomas first, then Warren, then Tillman, then Dell, then Williams and Chark and Ford are all lower. Tillman's falling a little bit for me, by the way. Yeah, I would like that. Yeah, a different market for the running backs. Absolutely. That's exactly what I'm suggesting. A completely different market, completely different rules, because I think it's clear it's a problem. It's clear that it's a problem, and they need to be compensated differently, and we need a new structure.
That was back with the difference between Saquon and Jacobs.
Yeah, but I agree.
Yeah,
I think it should be a different market. I think it should be a different market for running backs. Thank you. I don't know which take that refers to, but thank you.
It was your Josh Jacobs. I saw it come through.
Yeah. Man. You know, the fantasy community can be a little petty. That much I can tell you for sure. I was writing about that today. Oh, and thank you for this. Thank you for this. I appreciate that. I think I know. I think you're in a chat that we're in a non fantasy industry chat, but I do appreciate you giving the show a watch. I will say that I feel like there are a lot of issues, but the running back situation is pretty bad. What about
is that Survivor Ivan? Sorry.
I think so.
Yeah, I think so.
What about reducing running back contracts and handing out loaded one-year deals? There's some mechanism that can be paid over more than 1 year without affecting the cap from that loan year. I think that's a little too cute. I think for running backs, there just needs to be some sort of other way to deal with them early on in their career. But the owners don't have much of an incentive, and if the players are not really pushing for it, it's not going to happen.
Yeah, and honestly, if you reduce those running back rookie contracts and you start looking at like the 1 year deals, that money's just going to go to the premium positions anyway. They're not going to be like, oh, let me give it to the running back.
I don't know. I don't know what the answer is, but it has to be something at like a systemic level.
Is that something where that makes the problem potentially in trying to fix the problem? It makes the problem worse.
It could be. I also think there is a universe in which, because running backs are undervalued, there are just less talented running backs.
Mm-hmm. I think we also
less athletes going to the position.
Yeah.
For NIL deals where there's the name recognition at the college level, where they're going to stay in school 1 or 2 more years, where they're making more money.
I know. I think that we're not that far away from that. At running back.
At running back, that's interesting.
I think that was. Yeah. I think Blake Corum from Michigan ran that risk this year. In addition to his knee injury, he's like, I can make more money. There was an additional donor as a Michigan fan that came through and said, here's an extra $50,000 for him and Edwards to both stay at Michigan. In addition to already existing money.
I love this. The owners will never.
No, they're never going to give that up.
Ever give up the franchise tag.
Never, ever,
ever. They'll never give it up. I love the idea. As someone who's all in favor of player power, but it's not going to happen. They will never give it up.
It would be cool if they did something like had Go ahead.
I would say the owners would allow for a fully missed year before giving that up, I think.
Yeah, they will never, ever give that up. As much as we'd love to see it, they'll never give it up. It's just like such a big source of leverage. Yeah, it was not meant to help players. It was never meant to help players. The franchise tag was put in as a part of the free agency negotiation. This is false, by the way. Totally false. I actually learned about this in my master's program. Totally false. It was put in at the start of free agency as a catch-all mechanism for the owners. They insisted that they include it as a way that they could keep one player that they wanted from hitting free agency. So this was never meant to help the players. This was always to help the owners. So yeah, this is false. Okay. Patrick, you want to weigh in on this last thing? Because you're
absolutely. As a Packers fan, Romeo Doubs building connection with Jordan Love. That connection existed last training camp. This is the same news that we heard last year. That started the Romeo Doubs hype. Definitely keep him on your radar. The ankle injury last year that caused him to miss games and then slowly come back as Christian Watson took off is concerning. That's healed at this point. So the bigger question is, where does this put him in the pecking order? Is he solidified as the wide receiver 2 on this offense, or is he the wide receiver 3 fighting with Jaden Reed? With the news coming out, I like him as the wide receiver 2 on this team, with the chance to be overtaken by Jaden Reed about halfway through the season. But I'm leaning more on the Dub side. So if you thought your Dub shares were dead in the water and that you overpaid for them last offseason, there is still hope. There is still a future for him. It just might not be necessarily as pretty as we initially had hoped, when people were giving late firsts and early seconds for him.
My God, I remember that, and that was like literal insanity.
I think I sent a second and Christian Kirk and Doubs to get Christian Kirk in a league, and I was like, that was the best move. I'll happily get off of this hype train before it derails.
Yeah, I would say it's going to derail.
He's mid.
However, I do think there's a possibility that he could be the wide receiver 2 for an extended period of time over Jaden Reed. And I definitely think that there was some hype after the draft that Dontavion Wicks would be able to pass Romeo Doubs on the depth chart. That's not going to happen.
Not happening at all.
Yeah,
all right, I'm out. I have to head out, guys. Thanks for a great show. Follow me on Twitter at St. Patrick FF. Peace.
Yes. We're not going to go too much longer, but to continue on this, is there an outside chance he's a better year than Watson? Pretty much zero chance of that to me. And then in terms of what's his ceiling, I think if everything goes right, Jordan Love is good. Romeo Doubs is the clear wide receiver 2 ahead of Jaden Reed. And, no one else really matters that much. His ceiling is like wide receiver 30. Everything goes right without Watson getting hurt. Like, assuming Watson is healthy. But even if Watson gets hurt, I don't think he's that much of a player than wide receiver 30, even at his best. But in redraft, I do rank him. I rank him at wide receiver 57, so pretty low. Not super interested in Romeo Doubs. But there's a path for him to be the wide receiver 2, and he's not someone who's going to come off the field. But yeah, I think we're mostly done. We talked about Josh Jacobs. We didn't talk about anything that was on the show sheet. That never happens. I wasn't a big fan. I think I wasn't a big fan of this topic. So I just didn't put much on there, and we just kind of didn't address it. But that's okay. I think we'll just wrap up the show. So anyone else have anything they want to say?
Come find me on Twitter. That's about it. What Gibbs FF?
I love that. Anything else? Nope. Okay. Well, as I said, make sure to sign up for the Patreon. The link is in the bottom of every show. And if you're listening on podcasts, make sure to subscribe. If you're listening on YouTube, like, comment, and subscribe. And make sure to catch all my shorts that are coming, short videos. And yeah, we'll be back July 4th. We will be here doing a Scott Fishbowl mock draft, 7:30 p.m. Eastern next week on Tuesday. And I'll see you all then.
Have a good one, everyone.